In 2016, just before the presidential election, Edafe Okporo arrived in New York from Nigeria and asked for political asylum. He says his life was at risk because he pushed for LGBTQ rights in a country that had recently enacted laws he saw as hostile to gays. Edafe then spent 6 months in a New Jersey detention center before being finally granted asylum. He writes about his experience in his book, Bed 26, Memoir of an African Man's Asylum in the United States. He is also the director of the RDJ Refugee Shelter, and he joins us now. Thank you very much. This is a harrowing story, and let's start with what drove you to seek asylum. People all over the world have many different reasons. It comes down to often political abuses. What is your story?
So, I was working in Nigeria as a human rights activist for the first LGBTI organization that provides services for gay men, because in 2014, after the anti-gay law was passed in Nigeria, there was an increase in the prevalence of HIV among gay men. So this became a crisis, and there should be an organization that provides such kind of services. So we created a non-profit that was located in Abuja that provides services for gay men to be able to access healthcare services. But because of the law that was passed that persecutes LGBTI folks by 40 years imprisonment, and an organization like mine by 10 years imprisonment, we've faced constant persecution from the government. I remember in February 2016, few months before I left Nigeria, my organization was raided by the Environmental Protection Agency in Abuja, and this creates a lot of scare in the community, constant persecution in the streets and every other place we find ourselves because of the label that we are being labeled by the society and stereotypes of what a gay person is like.
I remember when this law passed, and I actually had a chance to speak with the former administration officials when this law was passed, and there was kind of, they really downplayed it. They said there's going to be no prosecutions under it. They called it a private law, which was a specific government function in Nigeria, but you're telling a very different story.
So when the law passed in 2014, in Abuja, where I live, in Gwagwalada, the community in Gishiri was attacked, and 14 gay men were dragged out of their houses, beaten on the streets. In February, same Abuja, we were called, my office, they report human rights abuses to my office. So they called us that they found some gay men having a wedding, but it was just a gathering of guys. So non-state actors are taking the laws into their hands, and they are persecuting people because they say they're acting on behalf of the government. So it's really a different tale from what the government is saying and what is happening on the ground.
Okay, so how did you get out of Nigeria and come to the United States?
So I won an award on October 2016 to as an LGBTQ pro-gay rights activist fighting for gay men to have access to healthcare services. This led to persecution in my community, asking for me to be brought down dead or alive. I live in Abuja, in Jurumi community, and this is a Muslim dominated community, so people were after me saying that I should be brought down because I am advocating against their religious beliefs. So I already had a US visa to attend this award ceremony, which I did not attend. So I traveled to Cairo. From Cairo I go to JFK asking for asylum.
So if you did not have that visa, you would have faced a much tougher road.
In July of 2016, I was beaten and I blacked out. I stayed 2 days before I woke up and saw that I was in a facility. So I have seen near deaths, and I don't know what would have happened, likely deaths, because gay men are burned down alive, beaten on the street. There's what they call the walk of shame, where you are stripped naked and people sing around you. Worst punishments you can face is being stoned to death or burned alive.
What many Americans most don't realize is, if you ask for political asylum, it's not just an immediate panacea and you get to go home and live somewhere in the United States. You were detained in a detention center in New Jersey, which is not called a prison, but in effect it is. You can't leave for 6 months.
Yeah, so when I asked for, I didn't know what was asylum. I asked for protection at JFK. I came in with a visitor's visa, so I wasn't an illegal immigrant crossing the border. So when I was stamped to stay in for 6 months, but I don't have friends or family in the US. I've never been to North America before, so I was told I was going to be taken to a jail. So I was handcuffed, hands and legs, thrown into a bus. And
even though you had a visa?
even though
you
I had
could
a
certainly
visa,
have gotten a hotel room if you could afford it, right?
Yeah.
That was an option, okay.
but I came in with
Nothing.
nothing.
Yeah.
So, because I've traveled Egypt, Dubai, I've traveled to different places. So when I was taken to the detention center, it was just a little box. I have to stay for 6 months. I couldn't come out. I didn't see the air. It was just a little lighting on top of my roof. And we had to walk. The most hateful part of being in a detention center is that you have to provide documents for your asylum.
Right. So did you get any legal help? Was there someone to meet with to talk you through the process?
No, like they pasted some materials on the wall, like non-profit to provide legal services. One of them in New York City is Immigration Equality. They provide services for LGBTQ immigrants in New York, New Jersey area. So I connected with them and other friends because I was working in a USAID funded project in Abuja. So I had a friend from USAID Washington who came and to stand for me as a witness. It was really tough having legal representation because I'm not a U.S. citizen.
And were you mistreated in the detention center?
Terrible. The detention center, the staffs that run the detention center do not have, I feel like they are not well trained. So they treat
And they're
us
underfunded.
Yeah, so they treat us like even worse than how they would treat a criminal because we are not yet U.S. citizens. And because media do not have enough coverage of these issues, it's really terrible. I worked in the detention center for $1 a day.
How did it feel like when some judge said, we're granting you asylum? And I take it was a judge, but I'm not sure how that process worked.
So when the judge, you have to prove that your case is valid. When the judge granted me asylum, it was awesome. But I wasn't released from the detention center, even though I was granted asylum by 10 a.m. in the morning till 11 p.m. in the night. How horrible it is. They just opened the gate and said, go. No protocols. The detention center is at the middle of nowhere. No train tracks, no direction, no phone call. How terrible it is.
There's no help, no support.
Nothing.
Nothing. And now, quickly, today, you're doing okay.
By the grace of God, yes. So I am in a position to speak on behalf of people who have gone through this terrible experience. So that's why I'm trying to provide a voice. If I would advocate for anything right now, is for there to be an oversight that is not attached to immigration.
An independent organization.
An independent oversight to look over this issue.
Edafe, I hope you come back. This was very interesting.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Edafe Okporo, author and director of RDJ Refugee Shelter. Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.